All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 7 o'clock, so we're just about to get started.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is, I think, Wednesday, June 3rd. I think this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Programs and Services Committee. And I think folks have the agenda. I believe we are being audio and video recorded. So pay attention. At the beginning of the meeting, we have from Ward 1, Councilor President John Oliver. From Ward 3, Vice Chair of the Committee, Julia Malachy. From Ward 5, Councilor Brittany Hume-Charm. From Ward 6, Councilor Martha Bixby. From Ward 7, Councilor Lyle Baker, who just stepped out. From Ward 8, Councilor Stephen Farrell. I'm Josh Krinsman, Chair of the Committee, Councilor at Large from Ward 4. We are also joined by Councilor Cyrus Damubed from Ward 4, Councilor Susan Albright from Ward 2, and Councilor Maria Greenberg from Ward 1. Did I do okay? All right. I'm going to ask the committee's indulgence. I know we have 4 items on our agenda, but I'm going to ask if folks are okay taking up the 4th item first. That's the item 195-26, the resolution declaring the City of Newton's support for Newton's transgender, gender diverse, and LGBTQIA+ community. Folks okay with taking that out of order? I know we have some folks here who are interested in that, and I'd like to get to their item and let them go about their business when we conclude, if that's okay. Okay, so we'll take up that item first. I just read it into the record. There are several sponsors to this. I think the text of the resolution was in your packet. It's available online. I want to introduce Councilor Damubed, who is the lead sponsor of this, did a lot of legwork to pull this together, and allow you to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very grateful and happy and honored to be here in Programs and Services tonight. I think it's my first time joining y'all in Programs and Services.
The best committee. Recently voted the best committee by one member of the council.
And I think also recently voted the committee by the same member that gets the most work done.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep. So I'd love to share with you a little bit about the origins of this resolution. Last year, several families came to me, as well as a few other counselors, and under the stress and fear of a number of efforts that were happening beyond our reach, but at the federal level, shared their concern for what it needs to feel like in order to be safe and welcomed as queer people, as community members in Newton, and wanted to know what might be able to be done to kind of reiterate our community's support for them and for us, I should say. And so since then, we have had, I'm very happy to say, a really community-focused process that has engaged families, community organizations, faith organizations, and I'm also really happy to say the support from the mayor's office. So the mayor is a co-docketer on this, as you may know, and this is something that we have worked through with the mayor's team, with the city solicitors. And so it has really, the final text that you have in front of you really represents that careful, rigorous, thoughtful, community engaged process. I should say that this text therefore has basically been generated through that process, and I have really just been a shepherd for it. And I want to give a special shout out to one particular parent named Ryan McLaughlin, who's here in the room, who has really been a great partner in this work and making this happen. We might think, we might ask why we need this. It's worth noting this changes no rules, it changes no ordinances. Nothing legally is changing in the city by passing this resolution. But if you were outside with us just now at our Pride celebration, you felt the joy of community. You felt the spirit that brings people together and that helps people feel welcomed and safe here. And that's one of the beautiful things about Newton. And I've been so happy to see that in the last few months, we've done a phenomenal job across the city of sponsoring and hosting community focused events that celebrate people's identities and bring people together regardless of their identity. And this is just one more way that we can celebrate a particular community and make sure that they're welcomed in our big, broad community. I think it's also an important moment to recognize that there are challenges for the transgender, gender diverse, and LGBTQIA plus community in the city, in the country, that we cannot solve, that this does not attempt to solve. But this is really about a very particular feeling that we can share with our neighbors and with our friends. If you have kids, or if you are a kid, you know that you love your kids and they know that they love you. But saying I love you really matters. It goes a really far way. This resolution sends a message of love and support to our community here in Newton. And just being able to say it and to say it out loud that we love and support our LGBTQIA plus transgender and gender diverse community, and that our city supports them in the challenges that they face and in the spaces that they move through in life really goes a long way. I think it's really um, pertinent also to recognize in the context that we're in that our representative Barney Frank passed away recently. And there's a quote, I've read his memoir a few years back, and there's a quote that he has. He's responding to Rabbi Hillel's sort of ethical questions. And he says, my work for LGBTQ equality represented my response to the first question. If I am only for myself, who will be for me? And so tonight, I'm happy to say a lot of our community has showed up to be here for ourselves. And so I'm also asking and inviting you to be here for us too. So thank you and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Very well said. Counselors wishing to comment, chime in, praise, extol. Counselor Maliki.
Okay, thanks. I really appreciate all the work that was done on this. I do have a couple of suggestions. I noticed in looking at the.
Speak into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not? I am on. I guess it wasn't close enough.
There you go.
Boy, I keep telling the mayor he's too close, and now I'm not close enough. um, um, uh, I had a couple of suggestions related to the whereases that relate to the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. I noticed when looking at that survey, because there are a lot of references to percent of surveyed high school students, percent of surveyed middle school students, and I had not realized that the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, sort of the mechanics of how they did it. And to me, when you refer to surveyed students, it implies everyone who took the survey, but they actually have a process of eliminating a rather significant number of respondents, particularly at the high school level, if they don't answer enough of the questions, if they don't answer more than 50% of the test items, or, and this kind of maybe a little hard to understand, if a student took less than 50% of the median time to complete the survey. So if you sort of answer too fast, your survey gets thrown out. And if you don't answer 50% of the test items, your survey gets thrown out. So I suppose if, I'm not in the mind of high school students, but if you get bored halfway through, or if you're comfortable answering, the drug questions, but not comfortable answering the sex questions or whatever, I guess your answers don't get counted for anything. So the result of that is, it's particularly noticeable at the high school. They had 2,728 students responded to the survey. Of these, 1,252 were marked as incomplete and were excluded, resulting in 1,476 responses being counted. So that's basically 54% of the students who thought they were completing or doing the survey were counted, and the other 46% were thrown out. So where we say percent of surveyed students, I think it would be more accurate to say, here's my suggested language, for example, among tallied surveys, 70% of high school students and 5% of middle school students reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their gender identity, and 6% of high school students and 3% of middle school students reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their sexual orientation. And similarly, on the next item, um, whereas among tallied surveys, approximately 12% of middle school students and 23% of high school students identified as LGBTQIA+. I just think that would be more accurate. So that was one suggestion. And the other was that on the first item, where we're talking about, it says students who are LGBTQIA+ and students with disabilities reported higher levels of bullying than their peers. But then the percents that are cited are actually the average of all students. And when you look at the detail in the survey results, there's a big, you can see the difference between the percent of LGBTQIA+ students, what percent of them feel badly treated, and it's much higher than the their peer group. So if we wanted to, I think it would be stronger to maybe have percents, the actual percents that support the first sentence. So I just wondered if that was considered by the drafters.
Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilor Maliki, for those points. I think can we take them as two kind of separate questions here? So for the first point about the surveying practices, my understanding is that the removal of survey responses that are considered incomplete for various reasons, or that are significantly faster than the completed significantly faster than the median, that's a common surveying practice to remove those, which is not to say that I have any issue with the language you proposed. I think it's perfectly reasonable to tweak it to make that a little bit clearer. But just for everyone's awareness, I just don't want to call into question the quality of our youth risk behaviors survey process, because it was done in a pretty standard way. It's my understanding.
Let me just pause for 1 second then, because it sounds like you're okay with the first thing she suggested, but I didn't understand the exact wording change. Do you want to go through that and then we can get to the second part? Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and boy, separate from this, I think it would be great if we could figure out a way to get more kids to answer the survey completely, because I don't know how seriously, they're taking it, and the response rate seemed to be going lower every year older, so that was odd. Anyway, and I think this would sort of tighten it up a little. You wouldn't have to keep repeating so many words. Okay, so on the first item, picking it up with the second sentence. The one that currently starts, this included 7%. That sentence, okay. So my suggested language was, among tallied surveys, 7% of high school students and 5% of middle school students reported being reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their gender identity, and 6% of high school students and 3% of middle school students reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their sexual orientation, semicolon.
Okay, I just want to make sure we have that correctly.
Okay.
Councilor Donovan, it looks like you're keeping track. Drew, I know you're online clerking for us. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you're able to follow that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
And then right after that, and whereas, comma, among tallied surveys, approximately, comma, approximately 12%, and I think I suggested keeping the order of high school then middle school. But the way it currently reads is, would be approximately 12% of middle school students and 23% of high school students identified as LGBTQIA+. But if you wanted to keep the order high school then middle school, you could say, whereas among tallied surveys, 23% of high school students and 23% of high school students and approximately 12% of middle school students identified as LGBTQIA+.
Okay. Makes sense. Drew, you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Was there another, for that change, was there another clause impact? Okay, great. Then let's move on to the second one. I apologize for breaking them up, but thank you, Counselor Diamondbed.
No, that's great. Thank you. Councillor Maliki, to your question about the language around then their peers, it's been several months of going back and forth over this, so I can't actually remember how exactly we landed on that language. I believe that is language that was taken from the survey itself, but I can't quite remember the details of it, and so I'd be happy to kind of work through it with you now. Did you have a suggestion for how to change that?
Well, it would sort of mean changing the set of, okay, it would mean changing that set of numbers that I just went through. But just for example, where the high school gender identity experience discrimination, the average number that is 7% reported being treated badly or unfairly. So 7% is the average of all students, or gender identity, it was female 7%, male 3%, and transgender, which I think encompassed everyone else, 36%. Experienced discrimination due to sexual orientation. For heterosexual, it was 1%. For LGBTQ+, it was 22%. So that's really dramatic and supports the first sentence of that whereas.
I think I'm following. But
So do you want to say how you think it should read so we can follow along? Because I wasn't exactly following what you said either, so
Okay, all right, let me try this.
into the microphone is helpful again.
Okay. Okay, higher than their peers. Among tallied surveys, 36% of transgender students reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their gender identity, compared to 7% for female and 3% for male students.
Could we just make sure what, I'm not sure which whereas you're in. Could you just start from the beginning?
It's the whereas that starts with Newton's 2025 Youth Risk Behavior Survey.
the fourth whereas.
Fourth whereas,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And if anyone's looking, it's on page 23 of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey.
So the second sentence again, you believe should read,
Okay. There'd be a sentence like this, or there'd be a clause like this for each of these four numbers, because instead of having one average number, you'd need either 3 or 2 different percent numbers. So I can read that first one again if you want to hear that.
go ahead.
Okay. Among tallied surveys, 36% of transgender students are, transgender high school students, because there's high school and middle school and they're separate numbers. 36% of transgender high school students reported being treated badly or unfairly because of their gender identity, compared to 7% for female and 3% for male students.
Okay.
At
Okay.
the middle,
I'm not intimately familiar with the survey. Is that accurate?
Uh,
so that's an example. So you need to do that for high school, middle school, and then for sexual orientation, high school, middle school.
I mean, I know a lot of work went into this, so if we're gonna rewrite the whole thing, I
Yeah,
feel
no,
like you should
that-
have the,
That's my only other point. Yeah, I didn't know if they sort of considered illustrating the difference in treatment with the actual numbers, because the average over all students in a high school average of all middle students sort of obscures the difference.
So I think maybe, let's go back a step. I think the clarification around the survey results and all that is fine. This sentence in particular comes from the youth risk behavior.
Survey.
Yeah, the youth risk behavior survey language, which when presented, summarized this data as saying transgender and gender nonconforming students, students who are LGBTQ+, and students with disabilities reported higher levels of bullying than their peers. And so that's kind of why this language is the way that it is. My personal sense on this is that given that that's the language that the city has already used to kind of frame the way that we're talking about how students are feeling, and based on this survey, I would, I think, prefer to try to keep it to that rather than splitting hairs and also potentially conflating like sexuality and gender identity and those kinds of things. So, and it would also help to keep that kind of opening statement a little bit evergreen. So I don't know how to, this is my first time navigating this way. So
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure how we resolve this, but
yeah, so what I'm hearing is that the preference is to keep it the way it's drafted because it articulates the point that the survey made. I hear what you're trying to do and draw out the distinctions differently and call them out and accentuate them. Do you want to press that and take it to a vote of the committee?
I think it's easy enough for people to find the detail.
Okay.
All they have to do is Google Newton Youth Risk Behavior Survey and they can get the detail.
Okay, so you're okay leaving that point aside. We have the first comment you made drafted into, I believe accepted, just sort of as a friendly amendment. I don't see any concern about that on the committee, but we'll see. Let me see what other comments there are. Councilor Farrell?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to extend my appreciation and congratulations to our colleague from Ward 4 for the effort, concern, and energy that you have shown in bringing this to us. We thank you, and we thank all of the people here who support him. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from committee members? Councilor Bixby?
I will echo the comments of my colleague, Councilor Farrell. And, I appreciate the detailed conversation we just had and digging into the numbers. I think it's really interesting. And Councilor Maliki, like you mentioned, it allows people to go to this report and see for themselves more information. And I'll say, from my perspective, I'm actually not always a big fan of resolutions for the very reasons, Councilor Donovan, that you outlined. They don't change laws, they don't reallocate money. But in this one, the sentiment really does seem to be the point. And the sentiment here is that Newton stands with our community, that we stand with our LGBTQIA plus residents, and that we really, really care and want to make sure that everyone has access to everything they need in Newton. So thank you for everything you did. Thank you, everyone who's here. And I strongly support this.
Thank you, Counselor Bixby. Other comments from counselors? Counselor Charm?
Thank you, Chair. I join my colleagues in thanking Counselor Damabed for months of work. And also many of the community members who are here tonight and others who have participated in raising this to the council. I personally have, this is a topic that is really important to me personally, and I'm actually, I actually have my senior thesis from undergrad sitting here on the table because back about 20 years ago plus, um, I felt that a lot of the discrimination that was starting to be voiced and unfortunately exercised around same-sex marriage was really reminiscent of a lot of the discrimination that we had seen with racial discrimination in our country. And I think that we need to be really cognizant of when we see these issues spiking, particularly for political or other, malicious reasons. I think we cannot allow that kind of discourse to divide our community, to infringe upon people's civil rights, their human rights. And I 100% want to affirm to every member of Newton, as our mayor just did at the Pride flag raising, that every member of our community is welcome here. And I, for that reason, fully support this resolution and look forward to sharing it later in Pride Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank Councilor Damabed and his neighbors for all helping to put this resolution forward and together to initiate the celebration of Pride Month. It's a great way to start the celebration. Thank you so much. MAGA and the president have vilified and targeted the LGBTQ community, especially the trans community. Consequently, this community is extremely frightened and vulnerable. If we are truly committed to being a welcoming city, then we have a responsibility to stand with and protect our transgender residents so that they feel safe, respected, and accepted. This resolution is a small but meaningful step toward honoring that commitment. It sends a clear message that Newton is a community where everyone belongs and where everyone will continue to support and protect the dignity and rights of all our residents. So I wholly support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Albrecht.
I couldn't possibly make a statement better than what Councilor Greenberg just did. But besides thanking Councilor Damabed and the folks who worked with him, I want to thank this committee because you have shown the support that really shows the community what is meaningful to the city council. So I want to thank all of you as well.
Thank you. Counselor Baker?
I just associate myself with the remarks of my colleagues.
Which ones in particular? I'm just kidding. Counselor Bixby?
May I make a motion to approve? Is that in order?
I'm sorry?
This time? May I make a motion to approve? Is that in order at this time?
Sure. Okay. Counselor Bixby has moved approval. Discussion on the motion. All right, I will just quickly chime in. Very grateful that you raised this resolution, I know how hard you worked on it. I am pleased that we are taking it up. I'm pleased that we're taking it up right at the beginning of Pride Month. I have been horrified by what's going on in the country. I've been horrified by the vilification, as Councilor Greenberg said, of the trans community, by the LGBTQ community. Both in my day job and here, I have tried to support the trans community. I was on a text thread with two of my very conservative friends just yesterday, and they were very focused on trans youth, and it had me in a bad mood all day, just stirring and thinking about them. I kept asking them one question that they couldn't answer, which was, why do you care? And they couldn't really answer that. And, you know, we kept sort of going in circles, and I kept trying to come back to it. And because they're good people, you know, but it was very disheartening. So this is all to say that I am proud to support this. I know how hard, like I said, I know how hard you worked on this, and I thank you for that. I noticed that the mayor co-sponsored this. We don't often see the mayor co-sponsor city council docket items. That's a testament to how powerful this is and what a good idea this was. And I thank the mayor for doing that as well. I appreciate the words that you said, the speech that you gave. I thought it was moving. I know you said it's important to tell your kids you love them and for your kids to tell them. So if my kids are at home watching, I want you guys to know that I love you. And I want you to know that it's okay for you to tell your dad that you love him. It's very important. He'd love to hear that. So I am proud to support this as well. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay. In programs and services, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is unanimous. Thank you, programs and services. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. As folks know, we don't really allow applause in the chamber. I forgot to mention that while you were applauding, but okay. Our next item is item 50-26. This is the item to develop a new resident welcome packet with information on city opportunities. I believe that Dana Hanson from the mayor's office is here to talk. I'm going to allow Councilor Albright to just sort of introduce the topic. She's the one who filed this item and has been sort of working on this for a couple of years. And I know that the mayor's chief of staff has some thoughts of her own. So let me go first to Councilor Albright, then I'll come to Ms. Hanson, but Councilor Albright.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So back when I was president, finding people to serve on the boards and commissions was not an easy thing. There were people and most of the community doesn't know about the boards and commissions. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice? I tried to find out what do new people get to learn about Newton, and there isn't much that they get, if anything. So I said, wouldn't it be nice if we, as a community, as a city, reached out to the new people as they moved in and let them know what opportunities there were to participate in city government. And not only that, but what the nonprofit sector was all about. There are so many, I mean, I actually learned about so many nonprofits tonight out at the flag raising that I didn't know about. So wouldn't it be nice if there were a place and a way to inform people about this? Dana Hanson and I had a quick meeting earlier in the week. She wanted to know what was my reasoning. And it turned out that our reasoning for wanting to do this is very much along the same lines. And I'm sure she'll tell you that. And she has some ideas that she wants to tell you what she's thinking about.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Albright. I know it is always a good idea to hear what Dana Hanson has to say. So with that, Ms. Hanson.
There we go. Okay. I, like the mayor, am pretty loud. Thank you, Chair Krinsman. Thank you, Councilor Albright. And I also want to let folks know that Hattie Kerwin-Derrick, my amazing colleague in the mayor's office, she was actually the person that I had been brainstorming this with when we got a text last week talking about this particular docket item. As Councilor Albright said, we had a good chat earlier this week. We're very interested in welcoming newcomers to the city. This is something that actually Councilor Bixby was sort of an original motivator on this back in the day, right before the pandemic. She and Caitlin Cusick were doing, what was it called at the time? Welcome Newton. And it was a great idea. And when I was in Hattie's position at the time, we had brainstormed about it then. I think that it really does resonate with folks. There was just a young couple here at Pride today who was asking, how do I get involved in the city? And so I think that this is top of mind for everyone. And what Hattie and I were chatting about, we too were actually chatting a little bit about how to find a pipeline for new faces and boards and commissions. And while we put things out in the mayor's newsletter all the time, encouraging folks to apply and find ways that they want to engage with the city, you all know that it makes a difference when you come together and you sort of see and understand and hear from the faces behind city halls. So in addition to the idea of a physical or an electronic resource for newcomers to Newton, we were actually thinking of piloting some Welcome to Newton in-person sessions this summer, and using the assessor's database for new property purchases to invite people. We thought we would have one in July, August, and then September to see how this works. And we can we're going to be creative with the format of it. We were thinking that, a welcome from the mayor, perhaps some city councilors would like to come and explain the city council. I mean, how many years did I live in Newton before I understood the wards and how many different councilors there were? I mean, that in and of itself would be priceless, right? To describe that to everybody, and then to just explain how City Hall functions and explain that so much of the work that our city council does is supported by boards and commissions, and then also great initiatives by the nonprofits in the city. It would probably be tricky for us to have a resource with every single nonprofit in the city, and I know that there have been efforts to do that in the past. We were thinking more that we could invite all of the nonprofits to maybe have a little resource fair or share their materials with us or help us, get the word out about their initiatives. And that's kind of where we left it. I'm not sure if I left anything out, Councillor Albright or Hattie. Anything to add, Hattie? That's sort of where our thinking is right now, but I would love to hear what the council has on your mind, and particularly something that we're going to try to figure out. And I was just asking my colleagues in inspectional services department is how do we identify the renters in the city? I think that we know that the assessor's database has home ownership, but renting is a next frontier. And today we actually were having a meeting with the folks from Newton Crossing, the large new development on Washington Street. And we were trying to let them know that we're going to have this initiative, and we've already been introduced to the incoming property manager there. So we will try to sort of get those tendrils out, and we're looking forward to a great discussion tonight and getting any feedback and ideas from all of you.
Thank you very much. I have so far 3 hands. Let me start. Councillor Bixby.
Thanks. And as was just alluded to, this is something I've thought a tremendous amount about. When I first moved to town, and I said, I feel like we need a Newton 101. I need to figure out how everything works here. And you convened us, and from that, Welcoming Newton was born. We had a Newton 101 session planned at the library for April 2020.
Yeah.
That did not happen. And so it then merged with Newton Neighbors, and has lived there since, focused on community service and community connection in Newton, as well as an informative newsletter that organization puts out. So I guess as a jumping off point, I would say, there are a tremendous number of nonprofits that I think are doing fantastic work along these lines or tangential to these lines, or that could benefit from these lines. And, that is a piece that I think needs to be puzzled out. There's also just so much from the Newton City that I think people don't know. They get surprised, and I'm sure City Hall gets calls like we do, wait, I have to deal with the sewer lines on my side of the property, or, there's a lot of logistical stuff, not to mention the ways to get involved in the city that I think new residents could benefit from. So in some ways, I'd encourage this to focus a little bit more on that governmental side, and both in terms of information and how to get involved. And I very strongly support the emphasis on trying to connect with renters in the city, both folks who rent not in the big buildings and, you know, and the larger buildings, because they're a fantastic resource. And like you mentioned, can be sometimes feel a little harder to connect. And, you know, a notable thing that we heard when we were working on Welcoming Newton was often that renters on a certain street wouldn't even feel connected into their block. And so weren't invited to block parties and other things like that. And so the more we can help reach out in that very beginning of their time in Newton to help feel connected, that feels really important. So the last thing I guess I'll say on this front is just thinking about how to make it as multilingual and you know, just accessible as possible to in those various formats, both print and online and whatever happens. So some initial ideas. Again, I've thought a lot about this and done a lot of work on it, so I could talk all night, but I think this is great and would love to continue the conversation.
Thanks, Councilor Bixby. And Dana, I'm happy to give you an opportunity to respond to any of this if you want, but I was just going to go through the calendars. Did you want to say something
Just
there?
on one point with the
Sure.
language, one thing that I forgot to mention earlier was we want to engage with realtors as well. And at the AAPI Dragon Road Race during AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, there was a realtor there who works a lot with the Chinese community and families who are relocating to Newton from either other communities or even internationally. And I told her about this idea of this, you know, this convening that we're trying to have. And similarly, there was a realtor at the EID event this past weekend, and I sort of went up to her and told her about this as well. So we are trying to get out to a lot of different communities when the moment happens.
As someone who is married to a realtor, I support that. President Oliver.
Great, thank you, Chair. Complete support for the idea. If we could just start with what do we want to try and accomplish with this docket item tonight? Is it a little bit of feedback, some thoughts, some steering? I'm just curious so I can kind of focus comments.
Yeah, I think that's right. Councilor Albright.
So I think what we talked about when we met, Dana and myself and Hattie, was that based on feedback we get tonight, we could think some more and come back with some concrete ideas. It could be discussed again here in committee. So we're looking for feedback, we're looking for ideas, and we're looking for support. That's basically it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not quite sure I've been involved with a brainstorming docket item yet, but here we go. I think the idea is solid. I said that. I think that there was an effort when I first started to really get engaged with city politics. I think it was called Village People, now that I think about it. I think that is a fantastic extension of this idea. Like, I think that there are multiple existing organizations throughout the city that could kind of find this to be, I don't know, if you think of all of them as the different spokes, like this could be the hub, the core of it. I'm not quite sure if it requires an ordinance or not. Just kind of looking at the item like discussion and ordinance, but I'm not quite sure about an ordinance. But I definitely think that there is a benefit to this program in a lot of different ways, right? Get engaged with your neighborhood, meet your neighbors. I love the idea of bringing it into the neighborhoods. And I don't mean necessarily from a ward perspective, like a political arena neighborhood, but more or less the neighborhood that you live in. And again, I think that there are a lot of organizations that could kind of treat this as the organizing principle behind at least some of the things that they either are doing now or could or maybe should be doing. And I mean, I'm not even going to try and name them all, but at least half dozen come to mind. I'm sure you know more of them than I do. But right up until the point where there is an ordinance, I'm 1,000% in support of this, and I'm not even sure I would not support an ordinance. But There you go. Hope that's moderately helpful, if nothing else.
Thank you. Counselor Charm, followed by Baker. Counselor Charm.
Great, thank you, Chair. Okay, feedback, ideas, and support. Feedback, positive, definitely. Let's do this. I think that probably also counts as support. I too have often wondered, like, why don't we have something like this? And there are, once you get into it, it's like there are so many things that you wish could be encapsulated as part of it. Many of them have already come up here. I think so I won't retread that ground, but count me in for participation, brainstorming. The thing that I would suggest is that we don't necessarily, I think I would love us to be looking at how can we reach the people who aren't already plugged in, right? And there, I would say I love like the paper copies in CVS and Walgreens, I think can reach some people. I would probably lean more toward like, let's go digital. Let's have like a little sticker, in like by Stone Lovin in Waban, right? You move to Waban, you're going to Stone Lovin at some point, and let's have it be like an eye-catching, attractive, something that has just minimal information that the stores wouldn't mind maybe putting up, and have those be in the doorways of highly trafficked places in the village centers. This is, I think, also like, what do you do when you first move to Newton? Like, I remember on day one, signing up for trash and recycling. Like, that could be a way of like, okay, we have a new one. Let's like help to reach out to them. Realtors also. I think where there are more digital versions, I think we can always have the option to request a paper copy. But in the spirit of trying to keep things green and also like just keep it current, it's just easier to update an online document. And then the last thing that I would just include is I often wish that there were some sort of a resource of like, what are the various, online profiles for city departments and for a lot of the major nonprofit organizations. It's not just knowing that they exist, but like, I mean, I'm constantly trying to get the word out to between some of these communities who may be less plugged into City Hall and some of these City Hall departments, and other organizations that are serving our community. And I'm constantly discovering new Instagram handles and things like that. And so just to sort of have like, I would encourage us to use maybe some of the city social media channels, as like, here are the, clearinghouse of like some of the, top 10 various categories, and help people be able to connect to that, so that they can discover some of the, the top hits. So yes, those are some ideas. I will not belabor the point, but would love to continue the brainstorm and also just think about getting it in front of the new people, more digital. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Charm. Day one moving into the city of Newton was a traumatic day for me. I lost my security blanket in the move. I was looking all over the house. I couldn't find it. We don't need to get into it, but I was young. It was traumatic. Counselor Baker.
I think this is part of a larger theme, and I appreciate the effort and thought that's gone into it, and I encourage it to continue around trying to make the public aware of what's going on in a way where we don't have the kind of resources of local newspapers like we used to. And there are some online publications, and certainly the mayor's newsletter does some good and things like that. But I guess my suggestion is that this is focused on newcomers, and I think there's an opportunity in the city to just explain how the city operates. I've always thought it would be useful to have a guide that was sort of a super guide at the top of the page that says, if you don't know anything about how to navigate here, come here first, and then we'll try and explain how to navigate and what to go for. And if there were a way to keep a page that was secure for people who want to look up the nonprofits. One of the issues that we're all nervous about is how, you know, you jump from one link to another, and is it a legitimate link, and somehow attesting to that, it's hard enough to make sure the city website is secure. So I think you have to be cautious about what involves in effect, a link as opposed to information. But I think that there is an opportunity just, and say, if you're a newcomer, read the guide, and if you're a longstanding citizen, read the guide. It doesn't hurt. Some of you may remember participating in a TV series that when we were called the Board of Aldermen, it was called Aldermen at Work. Counselors at Work didn't have the quiet ring to it. So but the pandemic put us out of business because we couldn't get together in the studio, literally, with a safe space. But we did go through and talk a lot about what the city council did. And I think some of the material there is still relevant. And I'll talk to the clerk about that, because there may be ways to revive that without hauling all of you back over to New TV to go be interviewed again. Anyway, but thank you for taking the trouble to pursue this.
It was a very good show. Counselor Maliki?
I want to know how old you were when you gave up your security blanket.
I was 4. I was 4.
My nephew had his in high school.
Yes. And I didn't give it up voluntarily. It was lost in the, so now we're talking about it. Okay. So it was lost in the move. Don't know if I put it in the wrong box. I was 4, you know, maybe I was supposed to be looking out for my stuff, but it didn't make it. And so, well, all right.
Yeah.
Counselor Maliki.
Anyway, so I guess one thought, having an easy to find page on the website, maybe from the homepage. I get a little nervous about throwing QR codes up all over the place, because I've read about how people put up the fake ones and, you know, people don't notice and they think they're going to a legit one and they don't. But I think it would be great to have like a really simple URL that leads to the actual URL. Like maybe it's like Newton 101 at .newtonma, whatever, or something that's easy to understand that you could put up, that's easy to remember and easy to type. I like the idea of letting people know about nonprofits. I just wonder if there's any concern about that the city would sort of be curating nonprofits, and there are bound to be nonprofits that some people think, you know, we don't like them, we don't like their goal. And is there going to be content or viewpoint discrimination, which we know gets in trouble with flags and things like that? So those are my thoughts initially.
Thank you. Any other, Counselor Farrell? Is your hand accidentally raised, or?
No, just quickly, thank you, Chair. I think I support any effort to get more information out to public, new residents or older residents. And I must admit, as I sit here and listen to it, I can't wait for the section that says, this is your city council and here's how they work. So, but I do, I think it's a great effort.
All right, thank you. I see no other comments. Do you feel like you have some good feedback here?
This has been incredibly helpful. I really appreciate the opportunity to hear what's on the mind of our counselors, and we're going to be working on this. I guess one point of clarification on our end is we had planned on doing this series before this docket item came up. I imagine we may be on a different timeline from the city council in terms of meetings, and I would like to proceed with some of our plans in July. I think we would maybe have a hard time coming back and giving sort of an iterative report of this.
Yeah, they don't seem inconsistent to me, but Counselor Albright?
So, I mean, we have one more meeting in June, right?
Correct.
And by then you probably have a date set and you probably know what you want to talk about. So it'd be great to hear about it. And then people could put it in their newsletters and things like that. So to advertise it.
Okay. That we can definitely do.
Counselor Bixby?
So can I make a motion to hold?
Counselor Bixby has moved hold. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor of hold, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 7-0. Thank you. Ms. Hanson. All right. Next item is item 54-26. This is requesting an update on leaf blower, landscaper registration and enforcement ordinance. Let me first say that Commissioner Ciccarello was good and sent a bunch of information late last week. Unfortunately, he sent it to our clerk, Miles, who folks have probably noticed is out. He's unexpectedly out. He's out for a little while. I don't have a lot of information about that. I'm told he'll be back soon, but due to that, I'm just pointing out that we did not receive these materials 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Just due to those communication errors, it was certainly not any malintent. It was not nefarious, and it was unfortunate. Our committee rules do say that we should not consider materials that are not submitted at least 48 hours in advance. It is the practice. We have normally tried to suspend that rule if we feel that we do want to consider those materials. And then in order to comply with the open meeting law, as long as we include them with the committee report, everything is hunky-dory. So with that, Councilor Baker?
I move that we accept the late filed information.
Councilor Baker's asked that we accept the late filed reports. Any discussion on that? All right, all those, Councilor Bixby.
To echo our council president, maybe just ahead of things, can we get a little more context on the purpose of tonight's? This is a discussion and an update, right? So,
Correct.
okay, so then I feel comfortable with that. If all we're doing tonight is discussing and hearing the update, I feel very comfortable with Councilor Baker's motion.
Yep, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, then all those in favor of allowing us to consider those reports in this discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 7-0. Fantastic, thank you. Commissioner Ciccarello, he has been here a number of times. He does a great job
And we
updating us on the
have Ms.
status of the
Fenimore
ordinance.
join. You want to come? Can she come?
I'm sorry, Councilor Baker?
I'm just asking if we would invite his colleague.
Yes, I've invited our esteemed colleagues from the city to come up and sit here at the table to get grilled by us, to get grilled by Councilor Baker and praised by the rest of us, so that we can hear how enforcement is going with the leaf blower, both landscaper registration as well as the enforcement. So what say you, sir?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilor Baker.
just because the documents that have been attached are tables, it would be helpful, I think, if the commissioner could just explain what the tables represent. And then, and at an appropriate time, he can do that after he has a chance to report, I think. But it's not, some of them don't have full headings in a way that will enable you to understand what they are. So I just
Yep.
want to give him a chance to explain them.
So, Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can do that, Councilor Baker. But first, let me go through what we have for totals for registrations. And what we did is Deb had went and did, this current year, we have for registration of landscapers for leaf blowers at 280 so far this year. Total last year, we had 338. And in 2024, we had 356. So that registration dropped from 24 to 26 by 76 landscapers. That may be due to them maybe not wanting to work in Newton any longer because of the ordinance. I don't know why. It's been dropping steadily since 2024. We have compliance, okay? So when Chuck Edrahai is out there doing his enforcements, when he sees the landscapers working, he will drive up and make sure that they are compliant, or non-compliant. So in 26, currently we have 151 that were compliant, 25, 432 were compliant, and in 24, we had 311 compliant, which means compliance is increasing, which is a good thing, from 24 to 25, by 121 landscapers. I will go over the 60-day suspensions. 2026, currently this year, we have 5 that have been suspended. In 2025, totally, we had 19 that were suspended. And in 2024, we had 31. Again, suspensions down, which is good, means people or landscapers are complying mostly. There's a difference of by 12. Non-compliant. In 2026, this year, currently 40 are non-compliant. In 2025, we had 222 that were non-compliant. And in 2024, we had 283 non-compliant, down from 2025 by 61.
Can you just explain what it means to be non-compliant?
So what it means to be non-compliant is to be not registered when the enforcement officer goes and checks their registration, when he stops them. So he'll check, he'll look at what we have for compliance in the system. And if they're not registered, then they are not compliant with the registration.
Okay, and those numbers are instances or different landscapers who are non-compliant?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't hear you.
Were those numbers instances of non-compliance, and sometimes maybe one landscaper could have been cited, say, 5 times, or are those unique landscapers who were non-compliant?
Yeah, but it also means that they weren't compliant with their blowers for their decibel level of being 65 and under.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And again, it's unique. So those are instances of non-compliance, not necessarily unique.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So they may be registered, but using a blower that is over 65 decibels. Also, we have one landscaper who has currently is serving a 1-year suspension for from January 1st of this year going forward. He has approached my office and was asking if I could stay the rest of his suspension so he could go back to work as far as using his blower. He served about 6 months currently, so I was contemplating that. He has gone out and bought the correct blowers that he said he needs, and came to the office and was asking. I have not given him an answer yet, so I've been contemplating that. Any questions?
So Commissioner, one of the issues we talked about before was just coordinating with the police. And do you have any information about the police history of enforcement, since you've got Mr. Edrahe's and records and appreciate.
Not really. I know the police will sometimes, if they get called, they will radio Chuck. Chuck has a police radio now. So if the police department gets a call, they will radio Chuck if he's working.
Yeah, but the problem that we have is he's part-time. He's really good.
Yep.
And when he's moving around the city, I think it's a really important opportunity. But he can't be there all the time. He's only 19 hours a week, and he's not here the entire year. So my concern is that we're really dependent for Saturdays and Sundays and holidays and other times on the police. And I think it's important to have that data. But I don't know about other members on the committee, but I've heard concerns from citizens about the leaf blower problem still. And especially we're moving into the summer where everything is supposed to be electric, but you can go around the city and still hear leaf blowers operating that are not obviously electric. And so one of the questions that several colleagues have asked me is it time to consider at least moving, as other communities have done, to an all-electric model? But that's not before us in a formal sense, but just in terms of enforcement, it seems to be a lot easier if you hear a gas-powered blower and it's an all-electric model, then you know what you're dealing with without having even to go up and look at the label. So do you have any views on that?
Well, the electric blowers will still have to comply with the ordinance as far as 65 decibels. So
Right.
as long as they do comply, I'm not sure if these electric blowers carry a decibel tag. Do you know, Deb, if they do? So the electric blowers do not carry a decibel tag like the gas blowers, which would make it inherently more difficult for us
Mm.
to do enforcements on electric.
That's interesting. I think it would be useful to find out a little more about that before we come back, because I know other communities have gone to that
Mhm.
um, situation, and I've at least heard some sentiment for that. Um, So I guess the other question, Commissioner, is looking at the enforcement tools you have, there's an opportunity when somebody uses a non-compliant or, a landscaper who has violated the law and is now suspended, the property owner can be liable, or not using someone who's registered. There was, in the table, it looked like there were a couple of property owners who were fined.
Currently, last year, we had 2 that were fined. What you're looking at there is property owners will get a warning and a door knocker if they're using a landscaper who is not registered.
Mm.
So it may look as, when you look at it, it says yes, but that yes typically means that they've gotten a warning.
So we haven't really fined any property owners yet.
Not this year. Not this year. We had 2 last year that we fined.
Two last.
Yeah.
And do you know what happened as a result of the fine? Did they comply afterwards?
I don't know. They haven't paid? Oh, they did not comply.
They what?
They did not comply.
They did not comply.
No.
So I guess what I'm asking about is what, now we've had some experience with the ordinance. Is there anything that you think would enhance its enforcement beyond what we already have?
One of the things that would really, I think, help is the 60-day suspension is, I personally think we should do away with the 60-day suspension. Typically, what ends up happening is, so the landscapers can appeal these tickets. So
The landscaper what?
the landscapers can appeal all these violations that we give them. Okay, they have the right to appeal. Whenever there is a ticket written,
Yeah.
they have a right to appeal. So typically, once they get their second violation, that is what usually throws them into suspension. But typically what they do is they'll appeal the ticket, and usually this doesn't happen till like later in the season, August or September. And the appeal period, they have 21 days to appeal. So we can't do anything for 21 days. We can't suspend them because they're appealing that second ticket. Then what ends up happening is after the 21 days, if they do appeal, we have to wait an additional 7 days for the appeal to actually go through the system at the courthouse. And then typically we can't take them to court, usually takes an additional 1 to 2 months, which is now bringing us into the colder season, typically after the fall cleanups are typically done. So which means when they're suspended, when we hopefully win in court and they get suspended, it's in the wintertime, which really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. So if we did away with the suspension, you think they'd just pay the tickets, or what would be the difference if we did?
Well, I think we could maybe do the enforcement quicker, and I mean, the enforcements are they're very difficult to track also with the system. But I mean, we manage it, but it's difficult.
So, but I'm hearing, if I, just to be clear about it, it would be easier just to give tickets. And now there was also a home rule petition to increase our ability to the civil fines. Do you know what's, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, do we know what's happened to that particular?
I don't have any.
I
was
don't
thinking
think-
about the same thing, but I don't have an update as far as the state
Yeah.
legislature is concerned now.
The $300 is significant, but it's not like $300 10 years ago,
Yeah, I mean, and we've taken several landscapers to court and have won. The court's been lenient to them also. They've also asked us to work out payment plans for some of the landscapers who accrued quite a bit of fines against them. And the law department has written up payment plans for them to do. Some comply, some don't. I think we currently have one that owes $8,700 in fines.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if we did away with suspension, just to make it simpler for you, would it still be enough to have the ticketing enforcement, do you think? And because if someone, the question is, if somebody's using somebody who's unregistered, is that going to be the warning for the property owner or the fine for the property owner?
Yes.
Now, if they register and violate, I guess the question is there, it's a penalty for being unregistered, right, of $300, but if you violate, you're also $300.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what is going to help us make this even more compliant than now, if you had your druthers now, having seen the ordinance in effect for a while.
To get more compliance.
Because we're not interested in the money. I mean,
Well,
funny thing.
no, I know we're not interested in the money, but I think we're achieving more compliance just by what I've been saying as far as the record shows from what I said earlier this evening. Maybe not as quick as the council would like, but I do believe we're getting more compliant as the years go on.
Well, it's a good question, Council Baker. How can we achieve sort of universal compliance? So let me give the commissioner some time to think about that. I have two other councilors with their hands up, and then I'll come back to you if you have more questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. President Oliver.
Great, thank you. This is my first toe in the water on our illustrious leaf blower ordinance in terms of homework. So to the question that was just asked a moment ago, I turned to a good friend of mine, Claude, and asked, what are the decibel level ratings for electric leaf blowers? And the answer I got back is anywhere between 60 to 75 dB, depending on the model. So it's not like electric leaf blowers are that much quieter. It's obviously the engine and the lack of gas and emissions that is the benefit to electric blowers. Just thought I'd throw that in while we were thinking, or while I and Claude were thinking about it. But there you have it. Not much quieter, just less emissions or zero emissions. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilor Farrell.
Chair, I'm a little lost here. You said that homeowners can be fined for hiring someone who is non-compliant?
Who is not registered?
So
Yes.
the way the ordinance is currently structured, and folks correct me if I'm wrong, it is that folks register with the city, acknowledging that they know the rules, right, and they understand the law. Homeowners.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. So the owners or the homeowners, their responsibility is to hire a landscaper who is registered. That's their responsibility, and they can check that on the ISD webpage.
Yes. What I was going to say was that landscapers can register with the city. Homeowners, if they hire a landscaper who is registered with the city, they are protected from fines being levied against them. If a homeowner chooses to hire a landscaper who is not on the city's list, then the homeowner may be held responsible for a fine levied against a landscaper in violation of the ordinance.
That's correct.
Does,
First a warning and then, no. Yes. The landscaper and the owner get the ticket.
does enforcement happen on weekends?
Chuck does work on Sundays and Saturdays occasionally. He doesn't have set hours. He'll come in, sometimes he'll come in after hours and he'll do his rounds. Sometimes he'll come in on a Saturday or a Sunday. And so he mixes it up so, they don't try and get, pigeonhole him into a certain time.
So if a resident thinks that there is a very loud leaf blower going on, they can call.
What they can do is make a request for leaf blower enforcement through the system and put in the time and the date. A lot of times landscapers have a schedule and they will go to certain properties at certain times. And if the neighbor or who believes there's a complaint, if they leave that time and day of when this happens, Chuck will make a point to go out there at a time and really just sort of maybe ambush them, I guess.
I guess I'm thinking, like, stunningly enough, there are still some people who do their own leaf blowing with machines that are very loud. And so we're not necessarily after the landscape.
I believe homeowners would be exempt. I believe it's only landscapers or if you're doing this for pay,
So
that's what counts.
the landscapers who use unauthorized equipment are exempt from this law.
No, homeowners who use unauthorized equipment are exempt from the law.
I'm sorry, homeowners who use unauthorized equipment are exempt from the law.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm just curious, why aren't we interested in collecting the money once we find someone?
As a deterrent, I guess. It's a deterrent for them. At some point in time, we've had landscapers who have accrued, just like this one I spoke of earlier, where there was $8,700 in fines. We will take them to court and they will eventually have to pay.
I'm glad to hear that because everyone's heard this story that there is a builder in Newton who owes the city over $300,000 in fines and isn't being required to put it in an escrow account or anything until the court order is determined. And I'm pretty sure if this guy loses, we'll never see that $300,000. So I just get.
I think what
If
we're
we're going
doing.
to have fines, we ought to collect them.
Yeah, well, I think what we're doing here is that's zoning, I believe, what we're talking about with the builder, and this is a city ordinance.
So, yeah, I do understand the difference, but there are fines that aren't being collected. And I just think that what's the point of having the fine if we're not going to collect them? Thank you very much.
Councilor Maliki.
So I'm curious why electric leaf blowers do not have decibel tags.
I don't know the reason.
Okay, and so you don't know if there's any prospect for that changing.
I don't.
Okay, and so I heard from a resident on the south side that she thinks gas-powered leaf blowers at 65 decibels sound louder than electric leaf blowers at 65 decibels. Is that possible? Or is a decibel a decibel?
If they're rated at decibels, then they're the same.
Okay. Do you by any chance correspond or communicate with your counterparts in some of these other towns that have banned gas powered
I have
blowers
not.
entirely? All right. I just wondered how enforcement is going there. And so you're thinking that would that make it easier to enforce if all gas ones were banned? Are they easier to spot versus electric or anything like that?
I think it would be more difficult if the electric ones don't have a decibel tag. Right now, Chuck just goes up to the machine. If it doesn't have a tag, it's in violation. If it has a tag, it's got to be 65 or lower, and it's very simple. No sound test has to be done. Typically, if you're going to do a sound test, they'll just shut them off, and you won't hear them. They'll just drive away.
Okay, wait. If it doesn't have a tag, it's in violation automatically?
Yep.
Are we only talking about the gas-powered leaf blowers then? Because if no electric leaf blowers have tags, then they'd all be in violation, but that's what we want them to use when they can't use gas.
Well, yes, I believe so, but I mean, if it doesn't have a tag, are you checking that now, Deb? Yeah, so Deb's actually checking that now if the electric ones have a decibel rating tag on it.
So some of them might.
They may, and,
Oh, okay.
and maybe they do. Yes, they do have tags.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
The ordinance requires all legal blowers to have a tag. So.
Yes.
You know, if some don't, they still can't, they're non-compliant by definition if they don't have a tag.
Exactly.
So also, I do think, Commissioner, that homeowners, it's not exempt. I think the landscapers, this is, just checking the ordinance. Property owners are subject to the same restriction. The only difference is that I think property owners can operate at times that the landscapers can't because of, for instance, Sundays and holidays on their own property.
Yes.
But that's a different than the general principle, which you were trying to enforce. So I think the question for the committee, I've heard from counselors who are not on this committee, like Councilor Leary, who would be sympathetic to move to an all-electric version of the ordinance, just like other communities are. But that's something that I think needs to have support in the committee to bring forward as another second docket item, or at least if you want to amend the ordinance to remove the suspension, we need to have a friends too to make adjustments to the ordinance to make it effective and make it easier for you and for, and frankly, there ought to be some provision in the ordinance if someone is coming forward and has violated and said, I want to clean up my act and has been suspended. Now if the suspension power goes away, then it makes it irrelevant. But it seems to me that's where you're interested in compliance. You're not interested in just keeping somebody out of business. So we ought to clarify that perhaps, just so that we can make sure that somebody continues. But if someone hasn't paid fines to the city, I'd like to explore with the law department, what can we do in that situation? Because that means someone is truly being a scofflaw to the city in a way that I think is not fair to what we're trying to do is encourage the landscapers who are playing by the rules to feel that their good faith compliance is honored. And if we have other people who are not, then it's harder to turn to those people and say, we want you to do the right thing just because it's the right thing. And they say, well, I'm competing with somebody who's not doing the right thing. How can I earn a living in that context? So I think it's not just a matter of noise, it's a matter of fairness to make sure that the ordinance is enforced across the board as best as we can. So I guess the question I would ask members of the committee is there sentiment for having a Friends too to look at further refinements to the ordinance and whether it's a suspension or other things that might assist the enforcement over time. I'd just be curious, how do you want to proceed with that, Mr. Chairman?
Are you talking about potential changes to the ordinance?
Yeah, because that's not before us. We're just
Right.
discussing.
I think we would docket a new item. I think we got to docket a new item for that. I think this is an update.
Oh, no, yeah,
Right.
we can't do it with this item.
Yeah.
No, I think so.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to get a sense of members of the committee, whether that's something you'd be receptive to.
Okay, let me go to Councilor Farrell, then Maliki, and folks, please, as you talk, feel free to weigh in on whether you are interested in a separate docket item to make amendments to the ordinance. Councilor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Just curiosity, is there any sense about percentage-wise even, how much more expensive an electric blower is than a gas blower?
I really don't know.
We got Mr. Claude over here who's working on that.
It's my understanding that the gas ones work better, but
And
I don't know.
And the gas does work better. They're more powerful, obviously.
So what we've also seen is they'll have electric blowers. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll have an electric generator on the truck to charge the battery packs. So I don't know if that's detrimental to, because where they're driving around, they really don't have a place to plug in to charge these. So they'll have like a Honda generator or another type of generator on their truck
That'll make a lot of
running
noise.
to charge these batteries so they could be compliant.
Right.
Uh,
And
so-
that compressor or whatever it is makes a lot of noise.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a good alternative either.
I think
Just when we get to, should we ever get to considering an ordinance that says you have to have an electric, blower of some kind? I just think the economic consequences to these guys needs to be considered. I think they are, I don't know whether Claude came up with a rough idea of that, but it's an economic burden. You know, they want to do business in the city, but
well,
Let me
no,
just come to,
wait,
Counselor
yeah,
Oliver, did you have
that's
an
fine.
answer to Counselor Farrell's question that you wanted to?
I do. There we
Claude
go.
Olivier?
This is very exciting stuff. I love this. So the increase in price of electric over gas at the low end is roughly 10 to 15%. And at the high end, more the commercial, I think is what my friend here is trying to say. They're about double. So they go from, they said around 800 to 1,500 on the high end for the commercial blowers.
Counselor Farrell? Okay, you're all set? Okay, Counselor Maliki?
Just to clarify, that was the cost to purchase a leaf blower? Okay, he's nodding yes. Back to the commissioner, on your data about instances, it was instances of check goes up to somebody and they're not in compliance. Do you have are you sort of keeping track of how kind of the distribution, like he caught this guy 20 times and this person 5 times, and like are a few landscapers accounting for most of the instances, or are they all over the place and just one here, one there?
Well, if they're non-compliant, they're going to get a violation. They're going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
So, and if they're compliant, then nothing happens to them.
Right.
But we keep the record that they were compliant. But we don't know, I don't think we can,
So I think you kind of gave us a chronological list of like tickets issued
yeah,
or violations noticed.
yeah, for the entire year.
Yeah, is there a way to like sum them up and see how many are the same person or how many each person had?
So I think what she's looking for.
I can talk. I believe your question is, has one person gotten a compliant and a non-compliant? And can I run a report that way to give you that number?
Well, I guess I was trying to get a sense of
Repeat offenders.
repeat offenders, or are the only repeat offenders the ones who show up on the suspension list? Because they have 2 or more. Is it 2 or more?
No, these reports were done by permit number or ticket number.
Uh-huh.
So I could run the report another way by actual offender company name. And then you'll see the same company can be listed 8 or 9 times
Uh-huh.
as non-compliant. And then they could also be listed 3 or 4 times as compliant. Chuck has actually found the same company in the same day, compliant in the morning,
Huh.
non-compliant in the afternoon, same exact people.
And that's
That's what they
because
do.
at this location, they're using this kind of leaf blower, and at another location, they're using the bad ones?
They have both on their vehicles, the majority of them,
Uh-huh.
because they know they can't use them here. When they see Chuck, they know who he is. They'll
Uh-huh.
pull out the right stuff.
Ah,
And then they think, oh, I'm good for the day because Chuck's already seen me. I got my compliant. They move on.
uh-huh.
They don't realize Chuck is still out on the other side of town 4 hours later. And he got the same company and he looked at them and said, you were compliant this morning. I have to write you a ticket now because you're not.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And they just try to talk themselves out of it and they just can't because you're not in compliance anymore. So yes, the report will show them on both on the same day. But you would have to merge both reports together to get everything in one. So what I did was run who was non-compliant and who was compliant. So I can redo those based on company name if you would like to see that.
Well, it was more who are the repeat offenders, but can somebody actually accumulate like 8 violations without getting a suspension?
No. No, once you receive your second violation after you're registered. Oh, wait a minute, I'll backtrack that one. If you're registered and you get a violation for the leaf blower decibel, you can get 2 of those, then you're suspended.
Right?
If you're not registered, you don't get suspended. So your suspension report is only the people that registered. Everybody who didn't register is still out there being non-compliant and still getting more violations.
Right, okay.
So that's why the suspension doesn't work. You're basically penalizing the person who's trying to do it
Registered.
right, paid the $50 plus $2 for a sticker, registered, and now they're getting suspended, but the person who's racking up $600 isn't paying, nothing's happening to them. We try to take them to court, it takes time. They're still out there doing it.
And there's no comparable way to penalize them
No.
analogous to the suspension. Could it be that when and if they register, there's like a corresponding waiting period before you can actually work or
They
something?
can't register until they pay all their prior tickets.
Okay, well, that's something. But they're just piling them up and continuing to work on registers.
And we eventually take them to court. And therein lies where the penalty, and, the court's been very lenient on them many times, so. But if they're repeat offenders and they keep coming back year after year, the court finally figures it out and the city attorneys make sure the court knows and then they do pay.
Uh-huh, and everything comes to Newton District Court?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I notice we've been joined by Counselor Block. Coming back to Counselor Baker, but first I want to report to you that our home rule petition was approved by the House Committee on Municipalities and Regional Government, sent to the full body through steering and policy. It made it to what's called third reading. It kind of sits there waiting for representatives to ask that it be moved along, to move it along, and for the full body to approve it. It is sort of at the last, it is at like the 5-yard line of the House process. And then if the House approves it, it needs to go over to the Senate for the Senate's approval as well. My understanding is that our state reps are asking that it be moved along.
Okay.
So that's your update, although it's been sitting there since the end of March, for what it's worth. Counselor Baker.
So let me just clarify with the commissioner. If someone is non-registered, that's an offense by itself, right? You don't have to go and look at the ticket. Look at the equipment. If they don't have the registration sticker, Chuck can just write a ticket for non-registration, right?
Yeah, he'll write a ticket for that, but if the equipment that they're using is not compliant also, he'll write a ticket for that also.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll write in one stop, $900 in tickets, depending upon the time of year.
No, but I think it's important to understand that on registration is itself an offense that he can get a ticket for.
Correct.
So even, the registration at least gets you in the game. But if the suspension is not really doing what you want, then I guess the question is whether we should entertain that.
Yeah, well, like Deb had said, the ones who aren't registering are just accumulating tickets, but they never get suspended because
They're not
they're
there.
not registered.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to treat
Yeah.
them. You just want to keep racking the tickets up and collecting the fines.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm persuaded by Mr. Chairman that it would help the commissioner not to have to worry about suspensions and just write tickets. And then the more tickets you write, the more compliance you'll get. As I hear it, is that your basic?
I believe compliance will come with the herd of paying for some of these landscapers.
Okay. All right. So
So I think docket the item. Anyone who wants to sign on can sign
I
on.
can do it.
I think
Fine.
that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this, or I'm happy to take a motion, either NAN or hold, I think at this point, because I think we have some.
I'd ask to hold because we may come back to this as a.
Counselor Baker has moved hold. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Counselor Oliver, President Oliver is opposed to holding the item? Okay. 6-1 hold. because Counselor Oliver preferred to NA on the item. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, sir. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Just thought you may want to share. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Deb. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful night. Final item before programs and services this evening is item 77-26. This is review of the Newton City Charter. If folks recall, we started going through Article 7 on planning. I had foolishly presented the committee with the non-Charter Commission approved draft of Article 7. We talked a lot about the issues, but then we were going through a draft which was not the right draft. I promised to come back with the accurate draft. I have put the accurate draft in your packet. We can talk about it as much as you want, but then I'd like to also have a discussion about our calendar moving forward. So with that, let me, if folks have Article 7, I can take you very quickly. I can just describe to you what I believe it does. Okay. What this does is it again, as the charter currently does, it establishes a Department of Planning and Development. There is, I think I described to folks, there's special legislation that the city had passed on the topic. This kind of harmonizes this with the special legislation. It says that there's a planning board, membership of which is determined by ordinance. That's the case now. What it does slightly differently, well, sorry, it requires a comprehensive plan, but as laid out in the general laws. Okay, not every community requires a comprehensive plan. We do. There is a process under the general laws for establishing a comprehensive plan. Rather than having a bunch of different unique requirements, this says there are general laws, so our comprehensive plan should align with what the general laws require and how they are established. What it does is it requires a new mayor to, within 2 years of taking office, act on the comprehensive plan. They can either propose a new comprehensive plan, simply affirm that the comprehensive plan exists and is fine, or propose amendments to it. I think we talked about the fact that the last time the Newton comprehensive plan was updated was 2016, 17, something like that. So relevant now, pure policy decision. I leave that up to you all, but that's what the draft does. The council obviously has the authorization to approve, adopt, amend any proposal from the mayor. I believe the charter as it exists says that the city council is also empowered to propose new comprehensive plans. The Charter Commission did not include that. The Charter Commission removed that and said it should sort of originate with the mayor. But of course, the council is authorized to adopt or amend that. It does remove zoning ordinances, as Councilor Baker has pointed out to us, shall be not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. That was the language I think Councilor Baker liked a lot. Persuaded the Charter Commission to say that zoning shall be not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. They did that. It removes, the Charter Commission's draft removed references to urban renewal and sort of outdated laws that had been on the books at the time and are no longer part of the general laws. So that's just sort of an update in line with what the general laws say now. So like today, any proposed matter addressed in the comprehensive plan concerning land use, development regulations, capital improvement expenditures gets referred to the planning board as well. The current charter says that the planning board is supposed to make written findings. The Charter Commission proposed removing that because I think we all know the planning board is not making written findings. That's not happening now. I would argue it doesn't need to happen. And instead, it just asks the planning board to follow the general laws, which again, I think they're doing, which there are processes under the general laws now for how zoning changes are supposed to come into effect. The one thing I think, Councilor Baker, pay attention here, the current charter says that if zoning changes are made, that the comprehensive plan is deemed to be amended by those changes. The Charter Commission had removed that, basically saying that the zoning changes or changes shall be not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the breadth of the changes as I've tried to describe them. Councilor Baker, tell me why they're awful.
Your description is accurate. The one tricky problem, and I've got the charter in front of me of the current language, is that the red line version has two aspects that are a little tricky to follow. One is that there's some new language, which is not highlighted in a different color. And then there's some existing language that is retained. So the problem that I'm wrestling with is that it takes some time to sort of sort out a little more clearly what is current and what is not. I think your summary is accurate. And I think the policy choice before the committee is probably worth taking time to talk through. But I just want to point out that the current comprehensive plan provision does not have the plan be any, it's a guide, and it is amended every time we change the rules by amending the zoning ordinance, which I personally find appropriate because that's basically how the Massachusetts law operates. Comprehensive plans are amended by the process of amending the ordinance. And so this model as being proposed, while there's some cleanup of the archaic language like urban renewal and things like that, which obviously we don't need, I think is a different model, which basically I have misgivings about because I think that it's going to lead to litigation about our zoning ordinances in ways that we haven't had before. And I think that's not an idea that I'm going to support. So that's the basic issue, I think, involved. Some of the other context is really just cleaning up the process, and one is asking the mayor to go forward as opposed to just the city council or the mayor. This basically is an action forcing process to have a comprehensive plan brought forward within 2 years. And then the other question is the effect of it. And that's my concern. Not inconsistent is better than consistent in my view, but it still opens the door for the context of litigation that I think would be unwise for us to have. So that's why I didn't support this provision initially, and I wouldn't support it now. But it was improved in the drafting process over where it began. Let's put it that way.
So I don't want to misquote you here. I think what I heard you saying is you're okay with most of this, with the exception of removal of the provision that says that the comprehensive plan shall be deemed to be amended in accordance with the changes made by the city council.
And I would retain the language, it's a guide rather than not inconsistent.
And as a guide, okay.
And I would also allow the city council to do it without waiting for the mayor, but that's a minor matter, it seems to me.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this? President Oliver.
Okay, thank you. So I think I just heard something that we didn't hear last time, or maybe I heard something I didn't hear last time. I'm inclined, if I heard this correct, I agree with Councilor Baker. What I would not want us to put in the charter is language that basically says, or effectively says, the city council cannot pass an ordinance or change an ordinance that would put the comprehensive plan in conflict with current ordinance. Is that what I'm hearing? Did I hear that right?
You couldn't pass something that is, you could pass something, but it'd have to be not inconsistent with the plan. And part of the difficulty is that the plan would have it would be kind of a constitution, like the federal constitution is, or the charter is for us in local ordinances. And you would have the opportunity for somebody to effectively make a constitutional challenge to what we're doing. Right now, the plan does not have that effect. And I would be uneasy about giving it that effect. I think having a plan as a guide is helpful, but having it have an effect on what we can do and cannot do, I think would be unwise.
Right. So then I think I did hear it correctly. If I can throw another example out there, just because I'm not a lawyer, although I do appreciate the example. If for some reason the comprehensive plan said thou shalt not allow ADUs within city limits, and currently we have ADUs available within the city limits on every single lot throughout the city, and that's, you know, in fact. This scenario that Counselor Baker is bringing up would totally be in effect where the two, right, the comprehensive plan says no ADUs allowed. Actually, we have a state law then that says, hey, there are ADUs and you have to allow them. And the city's embracing that. So they would be in conflict. All three parties in that scenario would be in conflict with each other, right? If we adopt this language. Is that roughly correct?
Let's set aside state law for the moment, because
Fair enough.
obviously state law is
Fair
state
enough.
law. I think, and Councilor Baker, please you set me straight here. I think that the difference is that today the charter sort of says, here's the comprehensive plan. City council, you should pass zoning ordinances that are not inconsistent with this. But if you do, we will deem the comprehensive plan to have been amended to allow that. And the Charter Commission essentially said, you got to look at the comprehensive plan regularly, including when you have, sort of a new mayor, establish your comprehensive plan, and then your zoning ordinances have to fall within that. They have to be not inconsistent with that.
Okay.
Is that
The only difference is that the current version says it's a guide. Not inconsistent, it's a more powerful review tool. And it's not just the amendment process, it's the standard of consistency is different, I think.
Yeah, so the charter currently, you're right, says that the comprehensive plan is a guide.
Right.
And it's pretty open, and the city council can pass ordinances within that, without that, and if they pass them that are in conflict, then it's deemed to have been amended. And the Charter Commission recommended, sort of, for lack of a better term, elevating the status of the comprehensive plan to be more strict.
Interesting. I have railed against our current comprehensive plan for so long, this might sound contrary, but I'm not okay with the comprehensive plan ultimately then being a controlling overlay, if you will, on what's possible or not possible, even within a 2-year time frame, if we consider that to be restrictive or not. I think that's a bad idea. For example, let's look back not too long ago, when, as quite an emergency, if there is such a thing as a legislative emergency, we had one in Newton when it came to gun shops. Well, if there were some reason that the comprehensive plan restricted our ability to create the overlay that we ultimately did, well, that would have been problematic. And it does seem to me that this body has the ability to move, believe it or not, quicker than perhaps the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So I would be against that language. I would like to see it, if we leave that alone as more of a guide, that seems more reasonable to me. I don't like the more restrictive part of that.
Understood.
Thank you.
Other counselors? All right, then let me, okay, Counselor Maliki?
Yes, I agree with Councilors Baker and Oliver. And another issue would be, who would be the arbiter of whether something was in conflict or consistent with the comprehensive plan or not?
Okay. Counselor Charm?
Thank you. I think some of these points have been well taken. And there was one that Councilor Baker, you had expressed that was concern about it essentially being retroactive, since we have stricken the language of all future action by the city council. I wonder why we wouldn't just keep that language in. I mean, I understand why I understand why we're replacing guide with shall be not inconsistent with. And I understand why we're striking some of the language about urban renewal programs. But if we're essentially just trying to say we want it to be a future in the same way that it is today, We want it to be, helping to guide. Sorry, wrong word. We want it to be um, uh, helping to suggest the direction of future ordinances. Why wouldn't we keep some of that language in?
Some of which language?
The to all future action by the city council.
Think about subsection C effect.
Yes. What I have heard is it felt like a lot of the concern that I was hearing was or actually around that section of edits.
Okay, so I think, and you agree with that, correct? That you want to keep it as a guide?
I'm asking the question of, I don't understand why we struck to all future action, because it felt like there was concern of then it could almost retrospectively or retroactively be making some laws in effect.
I think retroactive applicability would be a question of law, and I'm not sure we could do that. I think it has to apply prospectively. For example, on the ADU question, if ADUs were allowed, we can't suddenly change
Right.
the ordinance and say now that is not allowed.
Right.
So I think that's just sort of an operation of law, and I think it was more cleanup. But what I'm hearing is a discomfort with sort of elevating, for lack of a better term, the status of the comprehensive plan. I think that falls into one general category, which is retaining the language about calling it a guide, and also the language about the ordinances deeming to have amended the comprehensive plan. Is that right? If that's the sense of the committee, I'm happy to, I can take on the drafting here and I can put those things back in. There are two other changes, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but just on that point,
Yeah,
the
that's
sense of the
accurate.
committee is
There's-
retain guide and deemed to have been amended.
But just to pick up on Councilor Charm's point, the language as currently framed in C would open the door to having existing ordinances all reviewed for non-inconsistency as opposed to future ordinances. And so the part of the question she's asking is the amendment as proposed retrospective as well as prospective? I think you tried to respond to that, but I don't think it's absolutely clear from the text. And I think if the thrust of the effort is to say, looking forward, then you want to make that clear. But that's what I heard your question to be framing.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing is that folks are comfortable with the cleanup language and the, compliance with the general laws and the references to the general laws. But there are two other sort of policy questions which I want to get the sense of the committee on. One of which is a requirement that the mayor, within 2 years of a new mayor taking office, that the mayor either, again, affirmatively say, yeah, I'm cool with the comprehensive plan, or at least file a proposed amendment. Does the committee agree with that change or not? And then I'll get to the third one after that. President Oliver.
Yeah. So on that one, I again, because I've railed against the current, for lack of a better term, comprehensive plan, I'm all for the regular updating or at least reviewing it and saying, yeah, that's still legitimate or that still speaks for us. I approve that part of it. What causes me a little bit of hesitation there is my understanding anyway is when a comprehensive or the comprehensive plan is updated, meters start to tick and money starts getting spent. And we are effectively, I think, saying you have to do this. You either have two choices, amend it or keep it as is. And if we amend it, my understanding is there's a process, I believe, involved there, which generally entails outside consultants and so forth. And it could get to be a fairly expensive undertaking. But that maybe I should be phrasing that as more of a question than fact, because I don't know the answer. Anyone here?
I think it would be up to a mayor of how in-depth they wanted to go with it. I mean, I think what I can tell you is that the thrust of the Charter Commission's recommendation was a new mayor should look at it. And a new mayor should say, like, this is trying to set, again, the guide for how development is going to happen in this city and how we're planning for a city. a new mayor should at least look at it and say, okay with the current direction on, or I'm going to make some changes. And if they're going to make some changes, I suppose it's as involved or as comprehensive as they want that review to be.
Because in the past, again, I'm going to phrase this as a question. In the past, haven't updates to the comprehensive plan included significant input from external consultants?
The one I've seen did, but Counselor Baker may have more experience with this.
The last time we did this, we had a comprehensive plan committee that was chaired by Phil Hare, who was a Newton resident, a very eminent planner and who just volunteered his time. So I don't think it cost us the degree to which it could have if we had had a consultant aboard. But it was a very long and it was a comprehensive and time-consuming and process. And I remember that literally going through it line by line, like the charter we're doing right here, as we had to try and amend the language on the council floor, as well as in committee, because it was a big deal to try and get it into shape. So I'm not in favor of the action forcing provision here. I think that the question of whether it should be updated or not is really a policy choice that shouldn't be committed to the charter. Any mayor could bring something forward, a member of the council could do it. There are opportunities if you want to do this, but I'm not eager to see the charter basically create an action forcing opportunity. But I would retain the opportunity for the city council, not just to limit it to the mayor.
And that was the third
Yeah.
question, was whether
Right.
we should retain. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah, but anyway,
especially if it's a comprehensive review, the city council doesn't really have the resources to do that, but I understand the point nonetheless. So, okay, anyone else
We
want
could
to weigh in
always
on,
ask.
sorry, go ahead.
I said we could always ask for that. But
That's true.
okay, so then in answer to your specific question, then do I like the idea of, kind of hanging the mayor, so to speak, either take where you're at or make modifications, is it every term? Sorry, swearing in of a new mayor. So that would have been in the case of Mayor Fuller, that would have happened 2 years into her first term, not 2 years into her second term. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay.
Within 2 years of being sworn in, she would have had to either propose a new or, start
Exactly,
a process.
But not
say, I'm okay.
not the 2 years after the beginning of every term, because she's sworn in once and then she keeps the office. Right.
Right. Again, I
Okay.
think the presumption was this mayor is still the mayor. So it's their comprehensive plan.
Fair enough. All right. I actually don't have a problem with that part of it. And I'll save comments for the third question, which is
Okay.
the
City council may originate.
council having the ability.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on the charter? Councilor Block.
Thank you, Chair. Just decided to drop in. Very interesting conversation. I think mayors need a lot of latitude to do a very difficult job. A lot is on their plate. I think that Councilor Baker said it very eloquently, kind of forcing a mayor to jump through this particular hoop to go to say, okay, here's the comprehensive plan. You must look at this. You must take a position on this. Either you're going to accept it or you're going to modify it. I mean, people elect the mayor. Mayor's an adult, whoever that is. They'll figure out how they want to set their policy, set a direction for the city. And I don't think setting a sort of forcing a process on them is particularly wise way to proceed. Just doesn't feel right to me. That's just my sense of it. Thanks.
Fair enough. Councilor Bixby.
So I was actually a little more in favor of these changes until I just heard the phrase. So a new mayor and this would be their comprehensive plan. And I'm not sure, Chair, if that's what you meant or if it was just sort of a throwaway phrase, but it triggered a thought in my head of, is this a political document? I mean, obviously the mayor is setting policy for the city, but does this make it more of a political document in some way? Is it tied to the vision of our previous mayor? I have not been here since the comprehensive plan was done, so I'm not quite familiar with how that all went in the past. Was it seen as that mayor's vision at the time who was putting forth the comprehensive plan? And do my colleagues who were here feel that that would be a concern or perhaps a benefit? Again, if people elected a mayor and we want them to put forward their vision, there's benefits to it as well, I guess. But thoughts on that?
I should.
Well, what I'll say is that the current version is but also the Charter Commission's version has the comprehensive plan originating with the administration, which really has the planning department, which lays out the vision for the planning department, which hires the planning director, which administers the plan. The city council always retains the opportunity to approve, amend, change that comprehensive plan when proposed by the mayor. The Charter Commission's position was that this was a document that, again, was sort of an administration spearheaded document. Again, retain the ability for the council to weigh in, to change, to amend, but once it's finalized, it's finalized. And then the mayor could propose future changes. And a new mayor should take a look at that and see if it needed amending. Doesn't mean we have to feel that way. I'm just, that's what the sort of position was.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So would you support a provision that asked the mayor to look at the comprehensive plan within 2 years, or do you think?
I mean, I still think it bears some forcing function to have it updated. So I think with my concerns still there, I guess, in some way, do support that. Generally, it might be an argument to keep in originating with the council, even though all the points noted that it's not necessarily super feasible, but it gives it a little bit more of a whole of city government feel to it in some way. So that's where I am right now.
To keep both, to keep the
both.
city council originating opportunity.
Sure.
And
Again, just
the mayor. Got it.
noting that probably won't happen, but just that it's possible.
Understood. Thank you. Councilor Charm.
Thank you. I am comfortable with the deadline of doing it within 2 years. I think that the mayor can certainly, they have the option of just saying, actually, we're just going to stick with the current plan, right? Or like, I'm just going to do a very minor refresh. They don't have to be undertaking a giant new tear up the current one, hire a ton of consultants and let's do this. But if you are, if you're the leader of a large organization, you should have a strategy. If you are the mayor of a city, you should have a strategy. And I think that if we want to be having our, our city feel like it's going in a direction that we all understand, then it seems reasonable to me that they should, be either articulating it or saying, I'm fine with the previous one, but we need to know what that is.
So,
Thank you. Councilor Farrell, was your hand up? Okay, but this is going to come against your 5 minutes. Councilor Baker, there are no 5 minutes. I'm just kidding. Councilor Baker.
Let me just point out that one of the reasons that I'm have misgivings about it is not that there may be some value in doing it, but if the mayor doesn't do it, what is the effect of not doing it? I mean, this is the charter is basically enabling. It doesn't have provisions that say thou shalt do. It says what you can do, but not what you must do. And I think that's a mistake to put in the charter. So I think if the mayor says, no, I'm not going to do that, and then we have a big hoorah about whether somebody's complying with the charter or not, and then Is it affect the value, the validity of something we do? Does some creative lawsuit come up and then make life difficult, or we have to defend it? And anyway, I just think there's an opportunity for mischief that's not necessary. I think certainly if there's a good policy in doing it, the good policy can be a conversation with the mayor. But I don't think it belongs in the charter.
The charter does say that the mayor must hire a citizen's assistance officer.
Does
Does
say
have-
that.
It does. So there are some things it says you must do.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, this
But
particular
can't be
mandate,
taken.
all right, fair enough.
Councilor Farrell.
With greatest respect, I disagree with Councilor Baker on this. I don't see it as a burden. In most instances, people who are coming into the office have some experience with the council. They've had an opportunity to think about it, talk about it, and if they haven't, they've got 2 years to do that. And to some degree, it says to us as a council, you better understand what's in here because this is where we're headed. And I think to make that commitment to a vision for where the mayor wants the city to go is an important statement. If the mayor chooses not to do that, I think that's a really interesting statement on the mayor. I don't know what, we don't yet have an opportunity to throw that mayor out of office, but I just think that not having it and having the mayor refuse to do it is a significant statement in itself. I don't think it's a burden, and I think it gives all of us a direction for where we're headed. Thank you.
Okay, at least within the committee, I'm hearing support for retaining the mayor 2-year provision. I think I heard support for adding back in the language around the comprehensive plan being a guide, applying prospectively, and that zoning ordinances or ordinances passed that are not inconsistent with the plan or inconsistent with the plan are deemed to have amended the comprehensive plan.
The prior arrangement in terms of the status of the plan
Correct.
versus local ordinances. That's really what you're doing.
Correct, correct.
And so,
The third thing is council may originate. This is a pretty straightforward one. Can I just get a show of hands? Who wants the council to be able to originate an amendment to the comprehensive plan? Majority. Okay, so I'll add that back in. With that, I actually think, again, I'll take on drafting. I'll put those back. And then when we come back, if it looks right, it looks right. But Councilor Maliki.
Thanks. I'm actually, I think, not a fan of the 2-year provision. It just seems kind of arbitrary and, thinking back, it was not the first 2 years of Mayor Fuller's first term, that we had the pandemic, but it could have been. We don't know what things could come up where, union strikes, federal cutbacks, other things that are taking a lot of time or precedence. And the mayor might not want to say, I'm good with the current comprehensive plan. They might want to change it, but not feel it's the time to do it. And I think we'd be kind of forcing the mayor into saying they're good with something that they might not be good with because they don't want to address it right away.
President Oliver.
My read of the second paragraph under B, the mayor may submit to the city council a new comprehensive plan or modifications, but as the mayor deems necessary, I think would kind of take care of the, we had a pandemic, so I'm not going to change anything at this point, but a year after the pandemic, the mayor could come back and say, okay, now that we have that behind us, I want to focus on the comprehensive plan. I got 3 edits I want to make. So I think that addresses what I heard you saying. I could be wrong, but I think that second paragraph or sentence really handles that or addresses it.
So I mean, I think we have sort of 5 in favor of the mayor thing and 2 opposed to it. So at the moment, the committee seems to want to keep that in there. Counselor Charm?
Thank you. I'm trying to trying to follow, but I think as we get to this question of the 2-year deadline, I think I'm trying to take a step back and say, as the conversation that we had in this chamber a couple days ago, what is the problem that we are trying to solve with this language that we have observed in the current charter? And I think what the problem is, but please correct me, I think what the problem is that it feels as though mayors, although they have the opportunity to put forward a new comprehensive plan, feel no sense of urgency to do so. And they therefore are sort of leading the city without a sort of overarching plan or strategy. And we would like to have more of a sense of that vision in that direction. Is that the case? Because I think if we are trying to instill some sense of urgency or some deadline, then I think that we need to have a deadline.
Counselor Baker, then Oliver.
To add one other dimension to this, that the action forcing process provides. Obviously, the mayor can say, plan's fine, go away, right? But I think implicit in the 2 years is an idea that the mayor does something more than just sort of wave at it and say, okay, we'll just continue with the comprehensive plan. Because obviously that opportunity exists, but it anticipates, it seems to me, some effort and time to generate something that the mayor wants to recommend. I will just say that we had a whole conversation in the budget just recently about the burdens of the planning department and the limited resources they have, where they're trying to respond to what we already have to ask them to do. And I can tell you that the department is struggling to respond to the needs of the various committees already. Now they're shorthanded, and maybe they'll get when they get some more people aboard, but I just want to be cautious about handing a mandate in effect, which is going to be done by the department. And the other agency that is in this particular draft, which is new, is the reference to the Planning and Development Board. That's not in the current charter. There is a planning board, which is part of this, the city already. It's not in the charter, but it's in, I think, in our ordinances.
It's in the charter too.
So the point I'm getting at is that there is a resource allocation decision built in here, which has impacts. And that's why in part I'm cautious about this, even though I'm in a minority. So.
All right, I have 2 more counselors. Let me try and wrap up. So Counselor President Oliver, then Farrell.
Great, thank you, Chair. I will be brief. My response to your question, Councilor Charm, is absolutely positively, yeah, that. I would like to hear, and to Councilor Baker's point, what we're basically saying, you have to tell us if this is your plan or not. I'm actually okay with that being in the charter. And I do agree with you entirely on and if it gets to be a big project, we're going to have to probably incur some costs to go outside because we don't staff to do this every 2 years or every 4 years if we're electing a new mayor every 4 years. But yeah, I really do believe that if the comprehensive plan is meant to serve as our overarching strategy as a city, I'd like to know that I can go read it at any given time and it's not originally dated in 2012 and updated in 2017 with a minor, if I recall correctly, update. But that's my 2 cents.
Counselor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. 2 things. Is it implicit in this process that when the mayor presents this comprehensive plan that the council has the opportunity and the responsibility to review it and comment?
Yes.
Fine. So we can state our opinions.
Not implicit, it's explicit that the city council either adopts it by resolution or may amend it.
Okay, good. So it's
Yeah.
not just this free-floating one-person idea.
No.
Secondly, part of a comprehensive plan seems to me taking into account the current and potential resources you have to implement that. And if you don't, then you're not doing real planning. Yeah. So I don't think it's a burden to say that to any mayor. Give us your plan. If we have concerns about how you're going to implement it because of budgetary issues, we're going to ask you about that. Thank you.
All right, so again, this committee retains the ability to do everything. We're not finalizing our approval of anything here, but the sense I have from the committee, and if you want to do a straw vote, we can, but the sense I have from the committee is that the draft is okay. But two things need to be put back in: the language about guiding, the comprehensive plan serving as a guide to the city ordinances, that ordinances that conflict with the comprehensive plan are deemed to have been an amendment to the comprehensive plan, and that the comprehensive plan or changes are explicitly to apply prospectively. And lastly, that the council may originate amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Chairman, it's to take out the non-inconsistent part. As a guide, you're keeping guide and not using the non-inconsistent. I think that was implicit in what you said,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
I do have a question about another part of this at some point when you have a chance.
Great. Councilor Farrell, did you want to say something?
But when can we see the final draft of this? Will that be online someplace or? I'd like to see the draft for this and also the draft for the conversation we had and the language we came up with on the prior meeting. Thank you.
I don't think we made amendments to the language that we came up with prior. I think we finalized that one, but I'll look back at that. I will make these these drafting changes, and the next time we take up the charter, we can start by looking at the language to make sure it's consistent with what we decided here tonight.
With all due respect, if we could have it sooner than that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So let me make
Councilor Baker, yeah.
I have a process suggestion. I think if it's possible, and we have somebody from the clerk's office here, if the version that you should generate is sort of attached to the committee report, or at least to the next time we have this item before us, and doesn't have to be immediately, because it's obviously, I think that would, just so we're clear on what the sense of the meeting was. But I would ask that the current language that's retained be one color, the new language being added be another color, and the language deleted be a third, so that we know what's really new. And the reason I'm saying that is there's a provision that is new that I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm just going to mention it, but it wasn't clear to me on its face that it was new language as opposed to the old language that we have in the charter. Part of the difficulty of this process, as you pointed out, is that this was the recommendation of the Charter Commission of a version that would be what they would see added and then what they would see deleted. But it is not exactly the same thing as looking at the parallel language in the current language. So for example, up at the top, there says there shall be a Department of Planning and Development. That's what's in the charter, but what is added is the language and a planning board and the membership and the terms of the planning board and so forth and the means of appointment. That, if you don't have the existing language in front of you to compare, you wouldn't understand that that is a recommended new term as opposed to an existing term. So I think just so we're clear on what we're doing, if we could all possible have the language of the old charter sort of available, or at least so we can be clear. That's a procedural suggestion. On the substance, is there a reason why the planning board is now added to the charter? I didn't understand why that provision was added by the Charter Commission. You recall?
Two reasons. One, the special act that I mentioned earlier, the special act that the city of Newton has adopted affirmatively creates the Planning and Development Board. So that is currently in law. And if I think, is it Part B that refers to the Planning and Development Board?
The charter part 7.1 in the proposed revision refers to the Planning and Development Board, and there is a reference to the planning board
Right.
in the existing. I just didn't know
So-
why there was a.
That's why the special act says that we have to have a planning development board, and the charter already referred to the powers of the planning and development board and the role that they played.
So you basically imported what was in the.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not troubled by that. I think our ordinances probably would do it as well, but it doesn't hurt to have one. Okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yes, if I can, I have a daughter graduating tomorrow. We got family in town, so I'm going to try to get to it. But if I can get to it by the time the report is finalized, we can have it as part of the report. Otherwise, my only hesitation there was the open meeting law and trying to make sure that we're not just sending stuff around. I want to make sure we have the docket item before us. And if the next time we take it up, we can begin with that draft.
When it's convenient, please. Thank you.
And by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. Councilor Maliki.
For the next time, when we have the draft in 2 colors and probably a line out for the deletions format, could we also get again, which I think you gave us maybe 2 meetings ago or 1 meeting ago, is that it? The state,
The special act.
the special act, the basically whatever we're trying to be consistent with and just have it all in one place. And so the public, anyone looking at it in the Friday packet just has it all together and doesn't have to go hunting for it.
Yep, I think that was shared as part of the last time we discussed this.
Right.
But maybe we can include that as part of the report. Okay. Okay, in terms of moving forward process, what we had on our calendar, what we had been scheduled to do was the school, Article 4, which deals with the school committee. There are really only a couple of questions there, and largely it is making it consistent with today's state law. But we were trying to do that in May. That has not happened. If folks want to try and do that in July, we can do that in July. I understand that Councilor Farrell and Councilor Block have proposed changes to the city council, which we were going to take up as part of this charter reform. I was going to propose that we maybe entertain that in September. Would folks be okay with, I don't necessarily want to do that over the summer, but would folks be okay with devoting some time in a September meeting to that?
Just in terms of calendaring, September is going to be I would say not the first meeting in September, just because we've got to sort of catch up on ourselves. But yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay, Councilor Farrell?
Thank you, Chair. Is there any opportunity? Because I think this issue of composition is going to be a long one, a lot of conversation. Is there any chance that we could have a subcommittee of this committee begin conversations with anybody who would like to participate in it earlier than September? Is that legally possible? Is it okay to do?
I would encourage you to have conversations. Okay, I hadn't contemplated a subcommittee as part of this work because we're trying to do this in committee.
Yep.
I'm trying to say, let's entertain this in September so that folks have a few months to try and have those conversations and formulate some thoughts. I'm happy to, if folks are interested in it, present some of the information that the Charter Commission reviewed and some of the options that we went through without, creating a new proposal of my own. I'm just happy to, for sort of information purposes, do that as part of our September meeting if folks would be interested. In that.
I'd rather have that done in September just because it gets stale and the summer is the summer.
No, that's my proposal. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, to do
Yeah.
that in September.
Yeah.
But again, I think telling you that we're going to do that in September enables people to spend the next few months thinking about how they want to participate in that conversation and what they might bring to that. Does that make sense? Yeah.
If I may?
Please.
One other thought on that. Because I agree with the simple fact that changing the composition or number of counselors on the council is that big a deal. I'm already nervous that there's only 8 of us talking about it instead of 24. I have no interest in a subcommittee that's smaller and, trying to kind of wrap their head around that kind of, not necessarily solo or on their own. A lot easier said than done. It does seem to me that there needs to be at least 8 voices there, but that's my opinion. And I do also agree that we've just been given kind of a, hey, we're going to talk about this in September, so get your thoughts in order. I think that's legit. That's my opinion.
Okay. Then can I get a motion to hold the item? Counselor Malachi's moved hold. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is held. That concludes our business for tonight. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Recording stopped.